Assalamu alaikum guys, and welcome back to another video. I hope you're all doing well, and I want to begin by not apologizing for not uploading in over a month. Now I mean that in the most sincerest of ways, but I think I'd gotten to a point sort of mid-July where I was mega burnt out and I just needed to distance myself from a computer screen. Anyway, I'm back after a very well-deserved break, at least I think, and I thought I'd share a few shots of some of the places that we visited over the holidays. So to kick things off, we went to Drayton Manor, which is a very pleasant theme park that's housed in the Midlands, which I'd been to a bunch of times in my heydays, and it was actually really fun. So as I roamed around, I couldn't help but feel nostalgic as I remembered all of the good times that I had there as a kid. So the only issue this time being the very embarrassing fact that I wasn't able to enjoy some of the rides as I've gotten older and bigger and fatter. There was this very embarrassing moment after arriving where I went to ride something called the Pandemonium, feeling that it'd pep me up and get me ready for some of the more big boy rides, but apparently the harness couldn't clear my shoulders, which meant that I couldn't ride. It was actually quite bizarre as I sat there with two of the attendants attempting to force the mechanism to click into place but utterly failing. Anyway, fat shaming myself aside, we've had some fantastic weather this holiday with temperatures hitting 38 on some days, and I'm sure that everybody's tried to make the most of it. News reports indicate seaside towns have been overrun with beachgoers, and that must be very good for local businesses and also for the adults and children alike, as we've been cooped up this past year and a half without being able to get out, travel, see each other. But at the same time, it doesn't seem that the end of COVID is anywhere in sight, because the news indicates that COVID's still on the rise in some places, and it's still kind of worrying that there are a lot of cases of people contracting and being affected by the virus even after having their 2 jabs. Now this makes you question whether these supposed experimental drugs are worth injecting in yourself at all. Anyway, moving on swiftly before the conspiracy theory police come knocking. Today I'm cooking a Chinese inspired chicken dish, so stick around to find out. So today I'm cooking chicken Manchurian. It's a lovely, spicy, sweet and tangy Chinese takeout inspired dish which I love to cook. Unfortunately, there aren't many halal Chinese places where I live, and even though there are some places that will claim to prepare their meals using halal meat and poultry, they also serve pork, so it kind of beggars belief how they claim to serve halal food. Anyways, I find the only sort of realistic way to enjoy it is to cook it myself. Now whilst I get the prep out of the way, I guess some kind of explanation is in order. So contrary to popular belief, YouTube for me and for many is actually just a labour of love, and in the truest sense it's just a hobby of mine. So since I started uploading videos in January, I've been slowly improving my videography and editing skills, and I've really enjoyed the whole process. Seeing my subs count increase and all of the comments, well, at least the positive ones, it gave me a really positive outlook in terms of YouTube progression. And I genuinely thought, I can make something out of this and it could become something kind of substantial very soon. Unfortunately, I'd set myself up with a very unrealistic target of 6 months to start earning some revenue off my YouTube endeavors, that is, and as the 6-month mark slowly started to loom into view, I realized just how over optimistic I'd been. Now this, coupled with my day job and the ever increasing pressure of being a secondary school teacher or high school teacher for those of my friends that are over the pond, meant that I had far too much work on my plate, and I decided, despite my eagerness, due to disappointment and being burnt out, to put YouTube on the back burner and content creation on hold. Also, contrary to popular belief, school teachers are some of the most overworked people out there. The working day never seems to come to an end, and along with trying to balance, your personal affairs and ensure your work and personal life never become intertwined, as well as deal with young, impressionable and hormonal minds who seem to know just which buttons to press, especially when your patience is running thin. A 6-week holiday suddenly doesn't feel too long at all. I know lockdown was a nightmare for a lot of people, But you know what? I really think it helped raise awareness amongst parents to the simple fact that their sweethearts and angels aren't the most compliant and angelic beings that they thought that they were, as they attempted to work from home and in most cases homeschool as well. So I saw a lot of messages going around on the socials with parents woe-wishing and praising teachers, as I was suddenly enlightened as to how difficult it is to teach maybe just one or two children, let alone a class of 30. So credit where credit's due. And yes, I think I will give myself a pat on the back. Anywho, I digress. I think what I want to talk about today as a cook is YouTube in general. And I know that in 2021, with YouTube being one of the top applications for content consumption, as well as its use as a search engine, I can only imagine that there's a lot of people out there that want to try their hand at content creation. And believe me when I say you should give it a go. So the way I see it, everyone's a star. Everyone's got a talent and everyone is their own individual with their very personal story to tell. Now, whether you be a bus driver, cab driver, care worker, baker, factory worker, engineer, cook, vet, and so on, we all have interesting jobs and a wonderful skill set, and no two people are the same. Yes, there are some mega talented people involved in high turnover sports or entertainment, but that doesn't mean that they could drive a cab whilst navigating the streets of London from memory whilst dealing with drunken, abusive people. I guess we all have an important role in society, and there's definitely an audience for your particular skill set, I assure you. So by all means, give it a go. I think the biggest issue is finding the time and the enthusiasm whilst you wait for your channel to progress. If you're anything like me with a loving wife and beautiful children, you understand the importance of working and providing for them, and I see YouTube as an investment of time. Now, conventionally, people exchange their time for money. Now, what this means is that regardless of what task you're set to do during your working hours, you're paid a fixed rate in exchange for your valuable time. This means one of two things. A, your earnings are consistent, meaning that you can plan budget for the day, week, or month ahead, depending on your payment structure. And B, you're never likely to get rich off of doing whatever it is that you're doing. But in that situation, I think being comfortable and able to afford life is where you want to be. With something like YouTube though, I think the dynamic is completely different. Because its revenue is based off of advertising, popularity now changes the foreground. This means that my investment of 8 hours could potentially earn diddly squat, while someone like Aaron at Mr. Who's a Boss or Lou at Unbox Therapy, both of which are fantastic tech channels if that's your thing, is earning my month's salary with the very same investment. Now that means that the earning potential is extremely volatile and you can easily fall into a pit of despair. And this is due to the negative impact of not managing your own expectations. So I guess the best thing to do would be to try and sum up some of the pros and cons, and then you can go ahead and decide where your heart sits with these points. So to name some of the positives, YouTube is a very practical way of expressing your skills and creativity whilst earning a living. YouTube is also a lifestyle centric sort of job. YouTube allows for independence and for you to become your own boss. And it's also one of the fastest growing platforms right now. And in theory, YouTube could potentially pay you very well. Now let's look at some of the drawbacks. Because of the nature of YouTube and the fact that you're portraying some kind of skill set of yours or some aspect of your life for people to view, there's going to be an element of reduced privacy. And this also means that you're going to have exposure to people like trolls and haters who are going to send you messages and try and ruin your day. It's really important that you've got thick skin. It's also very time consuming and it's going to take a lot of effort and consistency, especially in the early days when you're trying to access your niche market. And lastly, earnings aren't always going to be in line with your time and effort that you've invested. So these are just some of the things to bear in mind. So all I've really got to say to you guys is to just keep striving. And if YouTube really is something that you want to pursue, then by all means go for it. All of what I've mentioned is just some food for thought. Now, speaking of food, the dish is just about ready to enjoy, and it's a very simple and extremely easy to follow along recipe at home. Give this a go and don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time guys, Salaam.